This is the story of Lydia, a devoted wife and mother whose peaceful life in Lekki was shattered by jealousy, betrayal, and dark magic. She had a loving husband, Fredrick, and a cheerful 6-year-old son, Owen, a family she cherished above all else. But when a trusted friend came into her home with hidden intentions, everything Lydia held dear was threatened. In this folktale, we witness how trust can be weaponized, how evil can sneak into the most sacred spaces, and how resilience, faith, and unwavering love can overcome even the darkest forces. Lydia's journey is one of heartbreak, courage, and ultimate justice, a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very end. Lydia had always believed that happiness, in its quiet and simple form, was the most precious gift life could offer. Her days in Lekki unfolded with gentle predictability, a rhythm she cherished. Mornings filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and Fredrick's laughter echoing through the duplex. Afternoons with playful games between her and Owen in the sunlit living room. Evenings when the family gathered at the dinner table, sharing stories about their day, the clink of cutlery punctuating soft laughter. Their home was neither extravagant nor ostentatious, but it radiated warmth, love, and stability, the kind of love that felt unshakable. Lydia often paused by the window, watching her 6-year-old son chase butterflies in the garden, his laughter pure and untarnished, and she marveled at how full her heart felt. Fredrick, with his calm yet commanding presence, always noticed these small moments and would brush a strand of hair from her face, whispering, "This is what life is meant for." And in that duplex, in their cozy, laughter-filled haven, Lydia truly believed they had everything anyone could wish for. Fredrick had been her pillar, not just in marriage, but in life itself. They had met nearly a decade ago at a mutual friend's wedding, and from that moment, it had been as though the universe had aligned in their favor. He was kind, patient, and fiercely protective of his family. Together, they had built a life that balanced comfort with contentment. Their business ventures, modest yet steady, allowed them the freedom to travel, entertain friends, and indulge in the occasional luxury without the suffocating weight of worry. But beyond material stability, it was the little things that made their marriage exceptional, the quiet smiles shared across a crowded room, the gentle squeeze of a hand, the whispered "I love you" when no one else was watching. Lydia often thought about how rare it was to find a partner whose heart seemed to echo her own. And in these moments, she silently thanked God for the life she had been blessed with. Owen, their 6-year-old son, was the living embodiment of their love. His mischievous eyes, wide and sparkling with curiosity, often betrayed a precocious wisdom that belied his age. Lydia remembered the day he had learned to ride his bicycle, how Fredrick had held him steady, guiding him along the garden path until he wobbled confidently on his own, beaming with triumph. Those small victories, shared and celebrated in the quiet safety of their home, were the threads that wove the fabric of their family. From bedtime stories that lingered past his bedtime, with Owen's tiny hands clutching hers as she read, to impromptu dance sessions in the kitchen where laughter reverberated against the walls, every moment was steeped in joy and intimacy. Life, for Lydia, was full, rich, and unblemished, a rare kind of happiness that seemed eternal. Yet, beneath the serene hum of their daily life, Lydia sensed a subtle, almost imperceptible undercurrent of anticipation, a quiet whisper that perhaps the universe had one more test in store. She could not have known that this unassuming Thursday morning, like any other, would become the turning point of her world. When she opened the door that day to greet a friend she had not seen in years, the smile she offered was warm, genuine, and trusting. Gift, her old friend, stood there with tears streaking her cheeks, her voice trembling as she spoke of eviction, lost apartments, and despair. Lydia's heart, ever compassionate, immediately opened without hesitation. She offered her a room, a place to rest, a temporary sanctuary within the walls that had always been a haven for love and laughter. And yet, as Lydia stepped aside to let her friend in, she did not notice the subtle flicker in Gift's eyes, a glint that would, in time, set the stage for unimaginable betrayal. In that single moment, the peace Lydia had cherished for so long remained unshaken, blissfully unaware that the gentle rhythm of her life was about to be broken, that the very walls of her sanctuary would soon echo with deceit, jealousy, and darkness that no one could have foreseen. Gift settled into Lydia's home as if it had always been hers. At first, her presence seemed harmless, even comforting, a friend in need, someone to share laughter and tea with. Lydia, in her kind-hearted nature, went out of her way to ensure Gift felt welcome, offering her favorite snacks, soft blankets, and a space to rest her head after long days of searching for employment. She thought of nothing but her friend's well-being, never once imagining that this warmth would soon be weaponized against her. Gift's smile, though sweet on the surface, carried a hidden weight, a silent envy that Lydia could not see, and perhaps could never have seen. At night, as Lydia tucked Owen into bed, telling him stories of brave heroes and magical journeys, she did not notice the way Gift lingered in the doorway, her eyes glinting with an unreadable darkness. And it was in that moment, in the quiet shadows of her peaceful home, that the first seed of Lydia's torment was planted, a seed that would grow, insidious and unstoppable, in the weeks and months to come. The first sign that something was amiss came subtly, almost imperceptibly. Lydia woke one morning, feeling fresh and clean, confident after her morning shower, yet Fredrick's eyes carried a flicker of hesitation she could not understand. "Are you okay, love?" she asked, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. He only shook his head, his brow furrowed, a tightness in his jaw. Lydia smiled, thinking perhaps he was tired or preoccupied with work. But over the next few days, the small peculiarities multiplied. Fredrick recoiled ever so slightly when she approached, avoided holding her hand, and began speaking to her with a strange clipped tone. What puzzled Lydia most was that no one else seemed to notice the problem. Owen laughed and hugged her as always. Gift greeted her with warm smiles and grateful gestures, nothing hinting at any wrongdoing. Yet, Fredrick's behavior grew more pronounced. He frowned as he passed her in the kitchen, refused her kisses, and avoided sitting near her during meals. It was subtle at first, like a shadow creeping across a sunlit room, but it grew relentlessly, leaving Lydia with an uneasy, gnawing feeling in her chest she could not shake. She questioned herself endlessly. Was she imagining it? Was there something wrong with her? Was Fredrick hiding a secret she had no knowledge of? But the truth, lurking just beyond the veil of everyday life, was far more sinister than anything she could have anticipated. Weeks passed, and the subtle discomfort escalated into outright humiliation. Lydia found herself constantly bathing, scrubbing, changing clothes, applying expensive perfumes, adjusting her diet, visiting private hospitals, and consulting specialists, yet nothing could remove the invisible barrier that now separated her from the man she loved. Fredrick's avoidance hardened into outright rejection. He insulted her subtly at first, sharp remarks hidden in passing, and then with a cruelty that stunned her. Meals she prepared with love were left untouched, and evenings that had once been filled with laughter turned cold and silent. Lydia could not understand it. Friends and relatives reassured her that everything seemed normal to the outside world, but inside their home, she was slowly being erased. The very walls that had once echoed with joy now seemed to constrict around her, pressing her into corners of fear, confusion, and heartache. And all the while, Gift observed from the shadows, her face perfectly composed, her voice soothing and supportive, as if she were Lydia's guardian angel, even as she silently orchestrated the destruction of everything Lydia held dear. The breaking point came quietly but devastatingly. One evening, Lydia entered the living room to find Fredrick standing tensely near the couch, his eyes narrowed, his lips pressed into a line she had never seen before. "I cannot do this anymore," he said coldly, his voice a blade slicing through the familiarity of their home. Lydia froze, heart pounding. "Do what, love?" she whispered, dread creeping into every syllable. "Us," he replied tersely. Confusion gave way to fear, fear to despair. Lydia's knees weakened, her hands trembled as she realized, with a pain that felt almost tangible, that the life she had known, the home, the marriage, the love she had cherished, was being stripped away, and she did not understand why. Gift, standing quietly in the corner, smiled faintly, a smile that seemed to vibrate with triumph, though Lydia could not yet decipher its meaning. In that moment, Lydia felt the first shattering crack in the foundation of her world, the first true taste of humiliation and betrayal. She had offered sanctuary to a friend, and in return, darkness had quietly settled in her home, creeping into every corner, whispering that even the strongest love could be undermined, manipulated, and turned against her. The storm had begun, and there was no turning back. Lydia stepped out of the duplex that had been her sanctuary, her arms trembling and her heart heavy with disbelief. The home she had nurtured, filled with laughter and love, now felt like a cage from which she had been cruelly expelled. Fredrick's rejection had carved deep scars into her spirit. The man she had once trusted with her soul now looked at her as though she were a stranger tainted and unworthy of affection. As she wandered into the bustling streets of Lekki, each familiar corner twisted into a haunting reminder of all she had lost. The neighbors who once waved cheerfully now stared with muted curiosity, whispers trailing behind her like shadows, each word a tiny blade slicing into her dignity. Lydia's bags felt impossibly heavy, not just with her few belongings but with the weight of shame, betrayal, and incomprehensible sorrow. Her thoughts swirled in confusion. She had done nothing wrong, yet the universe seemed to have turned against her, and no answer came. Gift, now ensconced in Lydia's home, moved with calculated ease, playing the role of a grateful friend to perfection. She smiled as she walked past the very rooms Lydia had once owned, now hers by deceit. The kitchen where Lydia had spent countless hours preparing meals for her family, once fragrant with love and spices, now echoed with the stranger's commands and laughter. She watched Owen quietly, forcing him to call her mummy, as she berated him for the smallest misstep, her hands raised in punishment that Lydia could not intervene to stop. Every report of his suffering cut Lydia deeper, twisting her heart with guilt and helplessness. Friends offered shelter and comfort, but no home, no embrace, could replace the hollow space where her life had been. Nights were the hardest. She lay awake on borrowed mattresses, the city's lights spilling through windows, her mind replaying memories of the warmth she had once taken for granted, every echo now punctuated by the absence of her husband's love. Hunger, exhaustion, and heartbreak intertwined, forming a tapestry of suffering so vivid that it seemed to consume her very being. Lydia's resilience, however, refused to be extinguished. Amid the humiliation, she found small ways to survive, to keep herself from crumbling entirely. She scavenged for meals when generosity faltered, whispered prayers under her breath when tears threatened to drown her, and clung to the hope that divine justice would eventually intervene. Yet each day brought new challenges, unkind remarks from passers-by, the cruel awareness that Fredrick shared his home and meals with the woman who had betrayed her, and the gnawing fear that her son would grow to forget the mother who had loved him so fiercely. Gift's shadow loomed over every aspect of her existence, a constant reminder that trust misplaced could devastate even the strongest bonds. Lydia's life had become a battlefield, each moment a skirmish against despair, humiliation, and helplessness, and yet she endured, driven by a love that refused to die. The city, vibrant and bustling, became a crucible in which her spirit was tested, each act of survival forging a resolve that would one day ignite the fire of justice. And yet, even in the darkest hours, the story of her suffering held glimmers of hope. In her friends' spaces where sought refuge, she found solace in whispered prayers, fasting, and quiet reflection. She drew strength from memories of happier times, allowing the warmth of past joy to embolden her against the relentless storm. Lydia's heart, though battered and bruised, began to knit itself into something stronger than before, a fortress of patience, courage, and unwavering faith. It was a slow, painful journey, each day measured in endurance, tears, and prayer, but in the quiet corners of the city, Lydia's spirit refused to break. And so, as the nights stretched long and the streets of Lagos hummed with life oblivious to her pain, Lydia endured, holding on to a hope that would, in time, restore not only her family but the sanctity of the home that darkness had dared to defile. The storm had not yet ended, but Lydia's resilience became a beacon, a promise that the tides of despair would one day recede, leaving justice and love in their wake. Lydia had endured months of betrayal, humiliation, and loss, yet the cruelest blow of all was being torn from Owen. Every moment apart felt like a knife twisting in her heart. While she found temporary shelter among friends and relatives, nothing could fill the hollow void left by her son's absence. Each day, Lydia prayed fervently, fasting and seeking guidance, whispering Owen's name into the heavens, willing divine intervention to bridge the chasm between them. She felt the weight of injustice settle upon her like a relentless storm, yet she refused to surrender. Every tear shed, every night spent shivering in borrowed beds, and every pang of hunger became fuel for a resolve that no darkness could destroy. She was a mother without her child, a wife without her husband, yet her spirit refused to break. Lydia sought small ways to reclaim strength and hope. She took on odd jobs, from tutoring neighborhood children to helping in small businesses. Each coin earned a small victory, each act of resilience a declaration that she would not vanish quietly into despair. Spiritual guidance became her lifeline. She visited churches known for deliverance, fasting, praying, and seeking insight into the unseen forces that had upended her life. Slowly, she felt the oppressive shadow begin to lift, a whisper in her soul hinting that the time for justice was approaching. Though she could not hug her son or see his bright eyes, Lydia envisioned him in her prayers, imagining the day she would hold him close again. Her love, though physically restrained, became sharper, fiercer, and more unyielding than ever before. As days turned to months, Lydia noticed subtle signs that the balance of power in her home was shifting. Gift, once confident and cruel, began showing cracks in her facade, unexplained fear, sudden anger, and whispers of unease that reached Lydia through trusted sources. Each report of Gift's faltering control became a tiny beacon of hope for Lydia, proof that her prayers and perseverance were not in vain. Yet, she remained cautious, knowing that one misstep could endanger her already fragile position. With every heartbeat, she clung to the vision of reclaiming Owen, of restoring her home, and of witnessing the consequences of betrayal unfold before her eyes. These small victories, invisible to the world but monumental in Lydia's spirit, were the foundation upon which the coming storm of justice would be built. The night she learned of the strange events unfolding in her home, Lydia felt something she had not in years, anticipation tinged with cautious excitement. Rumors of shadows, strange noises, and inexplicable confessions whispered through the neighborhood, painting a picture of Gift's growing desperation. While she could not yet see her son, the knowledge that the evil that had stolen him was beginning to falter filled her heart with renewed courage. She knelt in the quiet of a borrowed room, whispering a prayer of gratitude, and allowed herself to imagine the moment she would finally reunite with Owen. Though the path remained perilous and long, Lydia's spirit had been forged in the crucible of suffering, and she knew in her bones that no spell, no deceit, and no darkness could overcome the love of a mother determined to reclaim her child and her life. Months of relentless prayer, fasting, and unwavering faith had begun to bear fruit in ways Lydia could scarcely imagine. Though she was still forcibly separated from Owen, a quiet shift rippled through the unseen forces that had long controlled her life. That night, after Lydia attended a powerful deliverance service in Yaba, a force unseen seemed to follow her home, settling upon the one who had orchestrated her suffering. Gift, who had so carefully cultivated control over Lydia's home, was suddenly engulfed in a nightmare unlike any she had ever experienced. She screamed and wailed, the sound piercing through the walls and echoing into the early hours, as if the spirits themselves were punishing her. Her body twisted in agony, her hands clutching at the invisible chains that seemed to flog her mercilessly, and her cries carried the weight of guilt, fear, and terror. The intensity of her torment was so profound that Fredrick awoke from the sound, his heart hammering, unsure of what force had woken him, yet unable to ignore the anguished wails emanating from the bedroom he now shared with the deceitful intruder. As Fredrick cautiously tried to pay attention to her incoherent cries, a strange clarity began to pierce the fog that had long clouded his mind. The invisible barrier, the repulsion he had felt toward Lydia for months, dissolved in that instant, and suddenly everything became clear. The inexplicable odor, the harsh avoidance, the biting insults, and the unbearable estrangement all fell into place in his mind like pieces of a puzzle snapping into position. His eyes, once clouded with confusion and manipulation, cleared fully, and he realized the terrible mistake he had made. Lydia had been innocent all along. His heart pounded as he watched Gift writhe in induced pain, her voice breaking into frantic confessions. Between sobs and shrieks, she admitted everything: how she had bewitched Lydia, manipulated Fredrick, and seized the home that was never hers. The revelation hit Fredrick like a physical blow. Every second of doubt, every cruel word spoken to his wife, now stood exposed in stark horror before him. Fredrick's mind raced with anguish and regret. He could not fathom the years of misunderstanding, humiliation, and separation, nor the pain inflicted on his beloved wife and innocent son. Thoughts of Lydia flooded his heart, her kindness, her unwavering love, her patience, and the unimaginable endurance she had shown while he had been blind to the truth. "Where is she now?" he whispered to himself, the weight of shame pressing on his chest. Could she ever forgive him? Could he ever undo the years of hurt he had caused? The question swirled, but in that moment, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He could no longer wait, no longer hesitate. Lydia had been wronged, and he would move heaven and earth to make it right. Meanwhile, Lydia, though miles away and still separated from Owen, felt a surge of liberation and hope after the deliverance service. The heaviness that had weighed upon her spirit for years seemed to lift, and for the first time in months, she sensed that divine justice was moving in her favor. Gift's torment, Fredrick's awakening, and the unraveling of the evil that had stolen her life became signs that the time for reunion and restoration was near. Lydia's prayers had been answered in ways she could not yet fully witness, yet her heart knew that she was no longer powerless. The stage was now set for a confrontation with destiny itself, a reunion with her son, a reconciliation with her husband, and the ultimate exposure of the deceitful intruder who had dared to challenge the sanctity of her family. There was no mercy for Gift treachery. The very people who had once trusted her now acted decisively. In the same moment her confession poured forth, Gift was instantly thrown out of the house, dragged into the harsh reality of the streets she had once coveted. She screamed and wailed, her mind unraveling under the weight of guilt and the sudden collapse of her power. Her madness became immediate and undeniable, a chilling testament to the price of envy, cruelty, and deceit. The home, once poisoned by her presence, began to feel lighter, the air freer, as if justice itself had swept through the walls. With the antagonist removed, Fredrick's mind, now fully clear, was consumed with thoughts of Lydia. The haze that had clouded his perception lifted completely after years of manipulation, and the truth struck him with unbearable clarity. He had wronged the woman who had been his heart, his home, and the mother of his child. He felt the gnawing sting of guilt and knew he had to act immediately. Leaving no stone unturned, he went from friends' houses to relatives' homes across Lagos, searching desperately for any clue to Lydia's whereabouts. Every unanswered lead, every knock on a door met with silence, only intensified the anguish in his heart, yet he refused to stop. The city, vibrant and indifferent to human suffering, seemed to challenge his resolve, but his determination to find Lydia never wavered. The fear that he might be too late, that the years lost could never be reclaimed, pressed heavily upon him, yet he moved relentlessly, driven by the love he had almost destroyed. Finally, at a quiet home where Lydia had been staying, Fredrick found her. She stood weary but dignified, her eyes reflecting both the pain endured and the unwavering strength that had carried her through years of separation. The moment their eyes met, Fredrick fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face, trembling as he pleaded, "Lydia, please forgive me. I have been blind. I have been wrong. I can't live without you." Lydia's heart swelled with a torrent of emotions, sorrow for the years lost, anguish over all she had endured, but also a deep, enduring love that had never left her heart. The reunion, though tempered by the weight of past suffering, marked the first step toward healing. Her tears carried the pain of months without her son, yet within them also lay the promise of a future reclaimed, a family restored, and a home once again filled with love. Owen, still young and innocent, ran into Lydia's arms with uncontainable joy, his small body shaking as he cried, "Mummy, I missed you so much." Lydia held him tightly, whispering words of comfort and love, and in that embrace, years of torment and separation melted away. Fredrick, standing beside them, wept openly, humbled by the enormity of what had been lost and grateful beyond measure for the chance to make amends. The house, once fractured and poisoned by deceit, now pulsed with warmth, laughter, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Lydia's journey from despair to triumph stood as a testament to resilience, faith, and the enduring power of love. Sometimes it is better to help friends and family from a distance. Hey, my Afritales family, thank you so much for staying with me till the end of this powerful story. Your love, your comments, and your constant support truly mean everything. If you're new here, welcome to the family. Don't forget to subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to give you a shout out in my next video. This is Afritales by Sophyjay, where every tale carries the heartbeat of Africa.